lagging behind on deployment, and there's a few things that have changed. The service names changed, a few things like that over time, but that's all loose ends. I'm looking forward to it. It's been pretty awesome. It's looking great.
That's great to hear. You've been with us for a while and appreciate all your contribution.
Absolutely.
Shiva, good morning. How are you? Or actually, good afternoon, Shiva.
Very good, Andrew.
Good to see you. Or your what is that icon there, Shiva? Very interesting.
It's just a robot, nothing more.
Yeah. Well, he's got a very nice gaveling gun on there.
Yeah, I like the image basically. So
yeah, it's a good one. Very good. Hey folks, we get going. If you're new, we get going at like 3 minutes past. So another 2 minutes. I see Dennis out there. Dennis, long time. It's been a while, my friend. How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Good. Are you visiting your grandkids, or are you in West Virginia right now?
I'm back home right now for actually most of the month. Everybody has to come here this month.
Why shouldn't they? Right? But, it's good to see you. Chris Sears, always good to see you, my friend. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Justin, how are you, bud?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. Pearly, how you been, man? It's good to see you. How's New Hampshire?
Hey, Andrew. Yeah, doing well. New Hampshire's great. It's perfect time of year to be here down on Seacoast.
Is your son playing baseball this time of year or no?
He's graduated high school, so he's got a little bit of Legion ball that he's playing right now, a couple times a week, and he's headed to the Air Force for cybersecurity here August 16th.
Is he getting into any of John Strand's training?
Not yet. He's just starting on his journey.
Got it. Because there's a lot of online courses he can do, at ridiculously good pricing. In fact, John just took over. He's doing this week the intro to pen testing. Anybody jump on that, by the way? I don't know if anyone's doing that this week with John. No.
I don't have the time to add more things to my plate right now.
Yeah, fair enough. By the way, what I'm talking about, we'll get going here. So if any of you don't know John Strand, Google Black Hills, John Strand, considered one of the top cyber minds in the world. And we've got him involved with the MSPs about a year ago. We now have specific training, cyber training online for MSPs. We have 100, we're just coming out of beta. We have 100 MSPs in it. Justin, you've been part of that journey. What do you think? Getting good with the content?
Yeah, no, I love the content. I've taken some of John's classes before, and it's amazing content for the price. And I know that in the phone calls, the AMAs that we've done with him, he says he's just going to keep adding more, so even more value for you right there. Yeah,
fantastic. Thanks for putting it in there, Tim. And then click on MSP, by the way, or you may have that, Tim. Right, but there's an MSP link. All right. Let's get on rolling here. We got a good turnout at this hour. You're right, Hank. Agree. So Shiva, we were almost at 70, and I'm sure we'll crank up a little higher here. So lots been going on that I know you want to bring us up to speed. My name is Andrew Morgan. I help the Cyber CNS team on go-to-market. A lot of you guys have been with us back in Alpha Code days. Appreciate you being with us now. Shiva, we crossed into the 2-year mark of doing the partner calls. Can you believe it, by the way? Crazy.
Yep.
So how this all works is I'm going to turn the screen over to Shiva. He's going to give everybody an update on where we are with the migration and what's coming next. If you have Q&A, pop it in the chat. I'll see if I can interrupt Shiva at times that appropriate. And if not, we'll just wait till the end and get some lively chat going. So with that, Shiva, I'll turn it on over to you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Sure. And it looks good, show. We can see it.
Okay.
Wow, even an animation on top of this. This is, we're really stepping things up, show.
Yep. So I basically want to call this as a partner advisory council going forward, because I think in reality, this product essentially has evolved by the feedback that each one of these people have given us, and otherwise, basically, this product would not exist today. So the key updates that I wanted to kind of walk through are, first is like we've completed migration for everyone except for 9 clients. We are having issues with their Postgres data, which needs to be migrated, which we hope to resolve in the next 48 hours. And believe it or not, Dennis, who's our almost our one of our first customers, basically has this problem, and I've not migrated him. So sorry, Dennis, but I will basically get this resolved. So out of 1,164 instances that we had to migrate, we had this problem with 9 clients, and so we are just working through this last problem. Our cloud migration largely has been stable. The cloud stats are showing an average of 12 to 18% utilization of provisioned resources. So it gives us a lot of headroom for growth moving forward. We've put all resources in auto scaling mode so that no human has to come in. So it's not that you face a problem and then we come and try to fix it at that point of time and talk about scaling, etc. But so essentially what we are doing is that we are putting it in auto scaling mode. And of course, we put a limit so that it won't kind of break the bank. And the one thing which I want to call out is I want to thank each one of you for your patience and support during this process. I know this has been a little long drawn process, but we kind of learned our lesson when we went from V1 to V2, where if people who were there remembered that when we went from V1 to V2, we lost a set of features, and then certain things did not work. So it caused a little bit of a disruption at that point of time, and we didn't want to basically get into the same mode at this point of time. So we made ourselves doubly, triply sure before we basically did the migration. And I was ably helped by a large team over here who sat days, nights, and weekends to essentially kind of make sure that every instance basically was perfectly migrated, right? And we basically were running, we actually ran these scans for all of the locations and all of your companies, everything, the moment the migration completed. So we did a migration of, we basically did a scan involving all the companies of all the partners in one go to essentially see whether if that performance test would scale. And the answer was it basically scaled, and we were able to deliver that. So that's essentially the cloud scaling story. And as I said, the 9 partners we've not been able to migrate, we'll migrate within the next 48 hours. That's our commitment. So now that we basically finished this and are breathing easy, we basically had a whole bunch of pent-up items that we had to release. And these are basically what we are have put into the sprint 1 that essentially we've already started. And just wanted to make sure that all of you basically saw this. And in case you feel any of this is not required and basically something else has to be brought in, I want to basically make it clear that you can essentially tell us, and we will essentially kind of go with that. What we see as basically immediate things that we want to fix up, which we have worked on, is first is fix up the compliance view, right? Because there are all these compliances, people are getting confused about what works, what does not work. Like we had yesterday a customer, one of the partners who asked us saying that I want to see Mac in the HIPAA compliance view. Now, the problem with Mac on a HIPAA compliance view is the fact that you cannot enforce GPO policies which are required by HIPAA in terms of transmission, in terms of not being able to copy data, etc. So essentially, you cannot basically move Mac to HIPAA. So how do you make these things clear, and how do we essentially present the whole compliance data in a more comprehensive format so that both when you basically go to a CIO or any executive, you're able to present it in a form where it shows 2 things. One is what is the compliance today? And then when you go for the next month, basically what is the compliance compared to the previous month? If we are not able to basically bring this out and bring this out clearly, then I believe like as a compliance product we are failing, and that is what we are essentially focusing on. Second is that we have we've released Cyber Essentials as a beta, but we essentially need to kind of work on it a little bit more. For example, I've been kind of looking at some things that Adam and other experts in this field have brought up. Like, for example, what happens if there is no firewall in the network? Then it should be marked as a non-compliance and not just say that it's not relevant. So those are some of the things that we are working through and basically getting that out as quickly as possible. And as I explained, the new external scan integration, the new external scanner is ready. We are basically running tests against everything to generate the reports, and we are benchmarking it against the industry leaders in this particular space to make sure that we are getting the reports which are either as good or better than them. We want to essentially move assessment scan to an independent portal, and I will basically explain the reason for that as we go forward, and essentially make it a more simpler and more available scan. The reason for this being that we believe that the assessment scan itself is essentially, since it's more of a one-time activity and basically typically will be mostly done by people who are not technical, we want to make it a lot more simpler and basically easier for them to essentially get in, run a scan, come back, and basically not worry about any of the constraints. And so in order to do that, we are making some changes in the assessment scan and basically kind of making it very simple. So we kind of changing around the technology over there so that it becomes easier to put it over there, deploy, and basically get the results out rather than a little bit of a very clunky mechanism that we have today. Azure AD data has to be brought on par with Active Directory. As of today, we are there, but basically since we do everything in real time and all of that stuff, there is basically a certain historical part of it that we are missing. So we want to essentially kind of bring this on par, and that is essentially what we're working on. The ability to create configurations in any PSA for the assets that are discovered and update those assets with information such as vulnerability counts, etc., that we can essentially populate in terms of vulnerabilities, configurations, and any mismatches is essentially something that we're working. And this will be across all the PSA tools, whether it's ConnectWise, Datto, Hello PSA, Synchro MSP, all of these essentially will be doing this. And last but not the least, real-time updates from lightweight agents, which means that if you install a piece of software or you uninstall a piece of software, this essentially will update everything in real time. So there is no need for waiting for scans in order to see the changes that are happening. So this essentially is what we are pushing out. This is basically one part of what we're pushing out. The second is essentially we are basically writing a module for the detecting Office 365 misconfiguration and compliance requirements from an OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams. These will essentially be pushed out as part of this immediate release. Third, there is a lot of heartburn that I have recognized because of the lack of adequate documentation around APIs and the ability to use the APIs. And in fact, some folks have actually questioned me saying that whether you have a real API or not. So one of the things that we're going to do is basically put up this new website, which is called developer.cybercns.com. I'm going to myself sit there and put all the API documents and samples in multiple languages and basically take help of some of the key people who have raised concerns about APIs to actually review it and then put it back into the system so that anybody who comes and uses this should be able to use the API without any problems. So this is essentially what we're going to be doing as the first set of actions for the month of July. The second part, which basically we have seen a lot of discussions about, and Andrew Watasco and others have basically kind of driven us in this direction. First is basically when you go to the notifications page, you see like 100 different types of notifications. It's not grouped, it's not categorized. So the first thing we're going to do is to basically categorize these different notifications. Like these are Active Directory notifications. These are asset level notifications. These are vulnerability notifications, right? So create these categories and then allow you to define whether you want to enable a category or disable a category. And then under a category, you can go and enable and disable specific items, okay? Second, when you are basically doing the notification, you will have the capability to templatize it to say what will be the form. We will give you a default format. You can change the format and add fields to whether it's a description or basically mapping it to any fields in a ticket, all of it basically will be provided. Third, the ability to get summary downloads as links into a ticket. So for example, if there are vulnerabilities, if there are 50 vulnerabilities, so the constant question that we keep getting asked is like, I'm not able to see all the vulnerabilities in the ticket. So again, I have to go back to the tool. So the ability to embed a link inside of the ticket where you can click on it and download the HTML report of all the vulnerabilities will basically be provided. Fourth, since we are anyway, if you enable the ability to create configurations and assets, then we will attach those configurations and assets automatically into the tickets that talk about, say, vulnerabilities on them or assets basically being added, etc. All of this will, or if it's Active Directory, then basically we will add the domain controller, etc., as part of the ticket. So this essentially the attaching of the configurations is basically going to be part of this reworking of notifications, and the ability for you to essentially say, I want to define certain custom fields into my configuration where I want to update the vulnerability counts or compliance counts or all of these pieces. Like you can update vulnerability counts by severity, you can update compliance counts by what compliance metric you're looking for. So we can basically kind of, in the first stage, we will essentially kind of push all of the counts into the custom fields. If tomorrow we have requirements to basically push any other information, we can look at it at a later point of time. But as an initial set where I believe that on the notification side, we are extremely weak, these are the changes that we are going to make immediately. The next one is that we kind of went really fast and kind of doing a lot of integrations. And then the last 3 months, we've actually we've been really poor in adding new integrations, right? So what we are doing at this point of time is we're putting an dedicated team, which is being headed by one of our star developers, which is Divin, who essentially will be taking care of writing and basically developing new integrations across all of these pieces. And this is where we need your inputs and your advice. So what we are basically saying is that while the existing integrations are being enhanced with configurations and information of assets for all PSAs, we are going to look at integration with OWIC. Why? Can we pull information from OWIC directly for network devices? And then in case we are not able to basically get authenticated scans into a device, if you have done that with OWIC, we'll pull that together. We'll basically integrate with the EDR MDR to figure out what assets are part of your EDR MDR, and then be able to kind of fill out your security report card saying that these are being protected by the EDR MDR. Look at your backup integrations and look at backup status to basically mark out basically in case of a disaster or in case of basically like a ransomware attack, what is the ability for you to, from a security scorecard perspective, will you be able to recover the data? Then looking at RMM integration to basically push third-party patches and Windows patches when you basically receive a vulnerability, kind of create that workflow here, or basically work with Tim to essentially put that workflow into their system in Roost is basically something that we want to look at. And then integrate with all the documentation tools that you folks have, like IT Glue and Hoodoo, so that basically you can get all the documentation. So our request is, please give us feedback on what are the integrations we need to build. We are building a team which will essentially work dedicated on integrations so that you can essentially our goal is to essentially make sure that every tool in your ecosystem we need to integrate, that we need to be integrated with, should be integrated, and it should make sense for you, right? So that's the entire goal of this, what we're doing. And end of this month, July 30th, we will basically have the ability for you to define your own vanity URL. Second is you will be able to white label the agent, which means that the name of the executable, the name of the agent, the name of the executable, you can basically white label. Second is that you can essentially change the name, that is it, like we say, from CyberCNS to yourself. Third, you can essentially kind of put your own UI theme on top of it. We will have a new report composer, which will basically replace the current report builder, because the report builder is a little limited, and you can use it, but it does not generate something which is like, which I would say is like customer ready. So we're going to basically bring in a new report composer, and we will have the new user interface, which I demonstrated couple of months back, where we have all of the tasks, etc., released for cloud and on-prem. So one of the things that we'll be doing is that the new UI in preview will be released to select customers in the cloud before that, so that we can basically get the feedback, and they will have the ability to switch between the old and new UI, so that you don't miss any features, but you will have the ability to tell us if you basically think that this particular UI is good or what needs to be changed in that. Next, on August 1st, one of the key things that are changing is support. Support is moving entirely to the US. We're going to have US tech support with chat as primary and tickets as escalations only. So you no longer will basically be having to push a ticket, send a mail to support at CyberCNS and not getting responses and going through the escalation chains. We want to remove that entire cycle. So you will essentially get instant support with chat as the primary. And we're going to basically move partner calls into 3 calls from August 1st. And this is kind of been an ask. The US will be the current call on Wednesday, but we want to kind of create a UK-Europe call, because there's a significant base of partners there who basically on 11 a.m. Amsterdam time, and Australia and New Zealand again at 2 p.m. Australia time on Thursday. So that essentially is the plan going forward, so that because the time that we are at right now is basically midnight in Australia. So they constantly are not able to attend these calls. So that's something that we are going to be working on. So as a company, we want to basically evolve into making sure that the tool that we provide basically provides value to you. And if you basically look at how we've been all these days, right? We've never spent any money in marketing or any money in sales. We basically believe that if we deliver value to our partners, they will essentially kind of be able to see the value and then basically use the tool. So what we are basically looking at is, as I said, if you look at the life cycle for a user, like this sales assessment tool to essentially bring business into the MSP, right? And then there is the second part, which is what we do right now, which is one is continuous vulnerability assessment, the continuous compliance assessment, which is available. And what we will have by the end of this month is continuous cloud posture assessment. So these 3 pieces will essentially kind of get in here. What we want to evolve into, although I know that there will be varying opinions on this, is first is continuous configuration assessment, because we want to assess configurations, store configurations, have backup configurations, so that basically at any point of time, you can restore the configurations that are required, or you could essentially kind of provide it to any auditor who basically asks for when was this change made and why was this change made. And last but not the least, basically provide you all the data that you require in case of an audit. So we believe that CyberCNS as a platform, if it provides all of these pieces, then essentially as a platform, we would have delivered value to you, where you wouldn't basically be worrying, what am I paying this platform for? So that's essentially kind of the goal that we are basically taking forward. Okay.
Shiv, on the quick question on the continuous configuration,
Yes.
would that be like, would we get a CIS membership and do like use their benchmarks and compare it to that?
Yes.
Okay, makes sense.
And also basically, not only the CIS benchmarks, it's also to do with, for example, today firewalls, right? But people basically make changes to firewalls. Now those changes, they in some cases are being recorded, some cases not being recorded. And then you have to buy a separate tool in order to basically record those changes. The goal is that this becomes a platform which starts recording all of those kinds of changes.
Is that, and by the way, I don't know if Adam's on, like for Domotz, Adam, is that like maybe some potential integration there where, you know, you could, let's just say a firewall is changed and you could restore it based on some trigger and on the backup of Domotz?
Yeah, there's a config backup element on Domotz similar to Orvik, so that would be useful.
Yeah, or like, yeah, like what Justin says, exactly. Yeah, in other words, Justin, you're saying it's iterative, I guess, per se.
We use Orvik, so I know that's what it does for us right now. So I mean, not to say that I can't use a secondary backup, but that is it would just be overlap for us.
Yeah, I'm not saying we would back up. I'm just saying that we more, because again, we're more of the identify side, but could call. But I guess you're saying it's automatically change controls in there for you.
Yes.
Okay.
So Andrew,
Sure.
our goal is to essentially kind of answer the questions like when they get audited and somebody comes in and says, who made this change? Why did they make this change? And what was the change, right? So the ability to show that you have a continuous monitoring of changes and basically have a record of those changes is what we're basically trying to do this. And then integrate that with what we're doing with vulnerabilities or what we're doing with compliance, so that you can essentially present a comprehensive report of, these are the vulnerabilities, these are the compliances, these were the changes made to meet the requirements of any of these things, or these were out-of-band changes which were required by any customer changes that came into place. So that way what happens is you have one place where you have all the changes that have happened.
Makes sense, Shiv.
So while we're working on this, the next thing that we essentially want to do, especially next week in the call, which is a request, is we want to essentially listen and we want the voice of the partners to come up. We want to understand what else we are missing, right? Because I want to basically kind of, we've got our own idea of a roadmap, but I believe that as we've always done, unless we basically get your feedback, it is not basically going to be something that is going to be fruitful for us to build. How can we essentially help you elevate your game? What are the things, if we add, basically will make it a differentiated offering for you so that you can essentially make sure that you look good in front of the customer? Second, like, how do you add more value, and basically how do we increase your bottom line, right? So, and be able to automate tasks. For example, if you think that the reports have to be a little different so that you can essentially use it directly without having to fudge with them, then let us know that so that we can essentially work on those pieces. What other kind of visibility would you require from this tool, right? And reports, what would be the ideal report? So this is something that Dennis had brought up last time. So I want to kind of reiterate that. Can we basically walk through the different kinds of reports that you use today versus what we have, and what is it that you are missing today? For example, one thing that keeps coming back all the time is PII reports, right? So PII information. Now, if we add PII information, it would mean that I would have to scan the entire file system and basically bring back that data. Is that something that is okay with you folks? Like, there will be initial scan, which will take a long time, but then post that, essentially it will act on any new files that are created and give back the PII information. Is that something that's valuable? Is that something that is useful for you? You let us know and we will do this. And then second is that we want to kind of create like a true security series where we'll walk through what is the underlying technology, what is the business value, and then what pieces can we introduce AI into, what it can do and cannot do in security, so that all of us have an understanding of what it can do and what problems can AI solve, and how can we essentially introduce this both here and into any of the other pieces that we're integrating with. That essentially is something that we would like to basically hear from you, and then take that back as value, which we can basically deliver. Last but not the least, I'm just giving a company update. We are very close to basically getting an investment into the company. So that will essentially be an event. So I know we have a lot of people who have received partner stock options. So we will, you signed it and sent it back to us. So you will be able to cash out at this particular event. So just wanted to make sure that you understand that this is by a strategic non-PE and non-corporate investor. So it's somebody who's very passionate about problems of MSPs and how to solve it. So which is why we basically kind of looking at that. And we basically post investment, once we basically have that, we once again will basically rejuvenate this plan so that as contributors to this whole product and program, you basically, we continue to deliver value to you, not only from a product perspective, but also from your contribution being valued at this particular company. And the updates are basically shortly, we'll update you shortly, but we are expecting to close this in the next 60 days. So that's essentially the company update. So these were the list of updates I had for this week. Thanks.
Shiv, I'm still stuck on Dennis and sexy. So, but we got a lot of, we've got a lot of chatter in the, or a lot of comments in the chat. All right. So David was asking about, let's see, and you mentioned it, Shiv, updated documentation. Any kind of time frame that you might see that?
So along with this release, we will essentially, all the documentation is being updated. Like the folks are working on it right now, but most, like for example, the agent download links and all of those are updated. API documentations are being updated right now. So you will see basically in the next couple of days, most of it should be updated.
Yeah, he was asking specifically around like lightweight agents, call URLs for lightweight agents to call home. Is that the kind of stuff that's going to be updated, Chip?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And then Justin, you're saying, can we get all of the updates on email or recording? So like, you mean like the things that Shiva's reviewing once they're in the application?
Yeah, so like there was a lot of information, so I just want to go back and is there a way to like, hey, here's the target date for this was what Shiva said, like July 11th. The next one was like July 30th, and trying to listen to absorb all that. It's a lot of information for you to somehow get that in either post the recording. I think it was on the YouTube channel, or just get an email with these are the estimated dates. I understand that, you know, things could slip, but at least here's what we're trying to target, so I can at least digest it.
Got it.
I'll do one thing. I'll post the presentations on the Slack groups. So that way everybody has that, right? Would that work?
Okay. That works. Thank you.
Cool. Sean, maybe can you help me with, can we choose if the info comes over the internal note, or and there's a discussion of, Sean, are you talking about like a ticketing, some type of ticket internal note? Just curious what you mean.
Yeah, so it was basically, you know, so our engineers can see how to fix the issue without like, you know, giving the download links and stuff like that to our client. We don't want them taking care of it, basically. Obviously, we do, you know, if they get the ticket and they're going to try to download, we have other, you know, application whitelisting and stuff like that that we need to enable on our side before we can even run an executable on a machine. So.
Got it. And is part of this also for any co-managed, Sean, that might, do any of your co-managed clients have access to your PSA?
We do. We do have a couple that are using the Streamline IT system through ConnectWise.
Got it. So Shiv, can we accommodate for those types of things?
Yes. So this basically will be part of this update. So you can essentially kind of decide whether it's going to be part of description or an internal note. Of course, the terminology varies across PSAs, but you will essentially be able to say what goes into internal note and what goes as part of description, at least in the ConnectWise parlance.
All right, cool.
Cool. All right, Mr. Sexy, can you tell us where you'd like to see more tagging capability?
Basically everywhere where there are tags. I think that the tagging is really good in terms of where the tags are placed, but better ability to search by tag, basically it filtered by tag. So I can create a report that basically is filtered by tags. So I think we're most of the way there, but I just think some increased functionality would be helpful. I find tagging to be the most useful feature in terms of being able to kind of customize things the way that I want to see them.
Got it.
What about for role-based access control? Would you want to use it for that as well?
I'm a fan of using tagging for anything that we can use to basically to filter out specific items, whether it's companies. Someone was mentioning about one of the group companies. I think you could do that using tagging. Basically, I just find tags to be the most flexible way of doing that. Sort of like, you know, back in the day when you put all your email into folders, and then Google came along with, hey, let's use tagging instead so that things can appear in multiple folders. That's kind of the concept I'm looking at.
Understood, Dennis. So what we'll do is that we'll basically create, we'll make a set of changes and basically come to prepared for next week's call. We'll show you those changes. let us know if those are basically the places that you would look at it for. And basically, if there are any additional places, we'll basically discuss in the call and then we'll get that implemented.
Good, Dennis? I'm gonna assume yes. So like Kasey, I hope I'm pronouncing it correct. Every time I see Kasey, and I hope I'm pronouncing it correct, I'm like Kaseya. And so
Casey?
Lifecycle Insights. Is that on roadmap, Shiv, for integration?
I haven't seen it, but I'll basically get into this. I have not, honestly, I'm not exposed to the product.
Yeah, it's so Alex Farling's a really good dude. It's his company, Shiva. He was an MSP. Remember my IT process with Gary Pita?
Yes.
Call it the equivalent. I'm air quoting. It may be better, may not be better. I'm not here to debate that, but it's for for QBRs and pipeline management for around your NRR, non-recurring revenue.
Okay.
Okay, Will. Let's see.
So for lifecycle insights, would there be anybody who can help us in terms of identifying what will be the integration points, because we're not very familiar, like
yeah, because hey, would you be open to helping us, giving us access, creating an account once you kind of, I mean, we probably could go to Alex. I can get Alex to give us an instance, but Kasey, can you help us with kind of like the touch points per se?
Hey, sorry, I just had someone pop in on me. Yes, in general, I would be happy to help. We also have used Narmada, as Adam Robinson says. Both are good tools. My thoughts are we do routine reports back to customers, and having those reports accessible, at least for the high level data points, would be awesome. This is more in terms of a sales engagement than it would be for something compliance driven, but that too would be awesome to have.
So Kasey, are you thinking of driving this into, you do an assessment and somehow some of the assessment data ends up over in Lifecycle?
My thoughts are more for ongoing engagements, more so than the initial assessment, but yeah, that would be great as well. And my name's Casey, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, no problem. Thank you for correcting me on that.
Hey, you're fine. I hate the fact that Kaseya has one letter difference with my name.
I'm sure.
Long story short, with a sales assessment or an audit, initial audit performed against a customer, having some relevant data to give them one series of reports that are branded in line with our organization's ideologies, that would be great to have for a sales presentation. Sure, we do that in a PowerPoint situation now. But the ongoing quarterly reporting with change iterations, here's what's occurred, here's what we would like to have, that would be fantastic.
Okay. Yeah, if you could, Shiva, who should we just like maybe put Vishali, get a call with Casey and Vishali?
Yes.
Okay. How do we do, what's the easiest way? Is Vishali on?
Andrew, can we get the email ID so we can get in touch and then we can schedule that?
Yeah, Casey, do you mind shooting Vishali? If you look in chat, her name, it's VRUS, you'll see her.
Yep, doing that now.
Perfect. Okay, Will Heflin, good to see you, Will. So two-way ticketing, Shiva, and manage.
So this should already be working. The only thing which I think is missing is the real-time update piece. So I will basically verify if I'll basically get back to you. This should already be working. I'll basically check why it's not working in case it's not working for you, but it should be working.
Okay. Chris, talk to us about Veeam backup integration, what you mean, meaning I understand, quote unquote, what you mean, but kind of talk to us about what you mean in terms of Cyber CNS and those two working together.
Sure. So I think, in the slide deck there from Shiva, mentioning the integration with other backup solutions in terms of I assume the goal is kind of to ensure that you have a valid backup from a recent run of the backup jobs and make sure that those are completed. For example, I know we're using Blumira today for our SIM solution, and it has an option to generate an alert for, say, a missed Veeam backup job. So something of that sort, where if CyberCNS could validate that the backups are completing.
Yes.
Yeah, because a lot of MSPs use Veeam. Shiva, thoughts on adding that into the list?
No, we're happy to add the.
Okay, perfect. And
Perfect.
Shiva, do we need a partner for testing like Chris?
No, we have basically Veeam instances here, so we'll be able to.
Okay, got it. Okay. All right. And Casey, I'm assuming you mean two-way ticketing for Autotask.
Correct. Yes, that would be awesome to have.
Yeah, Shiv, is that on the roadmap, the way you're saying manages?
It's already supposed to be there, so I'll basically check in case it's not working and then get everyone with an update on that.
Okay. Jim's adding some additional, I get Axion since we're talking backup and pass. Jim, what do you mean with Pass Portal?
With Passportal, if you're integrating with Passportal also has documentation capabilities. So we would like to see this, encourage this to be also pushed over to Passportal as well.
Right. Is it trying to, air quoting, is it trying to be another IT glue slash?
Yeah, it has similar capabilities as Hoodoo and as IT glue. So we're making some changes on the way we do we currently have IT glue, but we're consolidating everything over to Passportal. So this would be very beneficial to us.
Got it. Shiv, can you guys make note of that integration as well?
Yes, I've already noted that down.
Thanks, Bill. So Sean, do you mind coming on of a client grouping? Maybe just give us your.
Oh, sure. Can you hear me?
Yep, gotcha.
Yeah, so we have different tiers of clients. Some pay for more services than others. So we'd like to be able to do some kind of grouping. So when techs are in there, they could say, pick a tier or a group of clients, and they're just focusing on those instead of the one big long list of clients.
In terms of remediation, though, is that what you mean?
Anything, reporting, just even looking at the dashboard to see what's going on at any particular point.
Okay, so would this almost be like we add a new tag which basically says tier 1 client and tier 2 client, kind of we can define the terminology, and if it's tier 1, then essentially they kind of appear up on top and basically they have like a gold star or whatever it is. So based on this thing, and then the dashboards are broken down by those tiers, like it would be gold, silver also, but essentially, is that what you're looking for?
Is that if it would work that way, where it would filter based on that and not just rearrange the order, but it would just actually filter down to that group, that would work.
That's what we'll do. So that's exactly Dennis's idea. So we can essentially create that as a tag, and basically based on that tag, if you filter, only those customers will appear.
Well, that'd be great.
Okay. Let's see here. Apologies. Second shift. Okay. Okay, enable Passportal. Got it.
I'm just going to state it because last time we tried enable said they had no API, so we were stuck with that. But if they do, then we absolutely will do it.
And I guess James too, can you be clear on enable versus, obviously they acquired, obviously there's multiple RMMs under the enable brand. Can you, is it then Central? Are we talking former, Steve Sobel's company? with. You guys get my point. Like, which RMM are we talking?
N Central, right?
Yeah, James, are you talking N Central? James. All right. Well, hopefully it'll come back on. James Ferguson, inventory scanner, Rumble scanner, run. I guess you're just making note of things you want integration on. Bear with me, guys. Is it okay? Michael Meyer, is there a report that could show customers which vulnerabilities were resolved in the last month? Could be a customer report, couldn't it? If it's
Yeah,
not,
we already have that. We already have that. Vishali, can you take the email and then we'll basically send them the link to that report because it's already in there.
Sure, sir. And I'll mail it across to my.
Very nice, Jeremiah Reed's comments. I don't know if you see those to the team, Shiva, in terms of complimenting you and the team, which I agree. Then he's like, we were able prior to migration to create our own visualizations and dashboards, Kibana. We didn't use it much, but it was valuable to track certain information in a way that made sense for our business and clients. Would it be possible for that to surface again?
Yep. We'll be surfacing that again this week. We just basically were finishing the final set of audits on it. So we'll be surfacing that this week. Not a problem.
Cool. Dennis, is that just a comment on how you create privileged access audit, or is there any questions in that as I think you're talking to others in the group?
No, I just this one particular report that I think is very useful, which we create, but we have to basically pull tabs from like 3 or 4 different reports to put it together in one report. Just a suggestion for what I thought was a useful report.
So Dennis, would this be like would you need like this in a Word document is easy. Second is basically Excel spreadsheet will also be there. And then do you need a PowerPoint with a summary of it?
No, Word, we use almost exclusively the Word or Excel reports. I mean, we create that one as an Excel report because it's much easier to just basically pull the data from the other reports. It was just a suggestion of, I think there are, I think we do some brainstorming about what reports are useful. We could come up, I'm sure a lot of people come up with some pretty good ideas.
No, I think this is a very good report. So Vishali, can we basically get this to Lisha tomorrow and basically have it created, please?
Sure, sir.
All right, Jerry. So Jerry's just confirming, Shiva, next week you'll be looking for recommendations?
Yes.
Cool. So, Chris, regarding RBAC, and can you help us?
No, this was basically RBAC based, basically the ability to choose a tag and say that people have access to any company with this tag.
This is,
Yes,
sorry,
exactly.
Back to what we were
Exactly.
talking about earlier. I'm just down in the conversation now finally, and that was, you were commenting while we were talking about that.
Correct. Yeah, just
Right.
that ability to be able to tag a client, say, tag it as government client, and then
Got
use
it.
RBAC to based off those tags. Yeah.
Perfect. Got it. Okay. You asked for feedback and where do we send those? So Tim's saying you asked for feedback on integrations. Where do we send those suggestions, Shiva?
No, we're going to do it on the call, like, because what happens is that we send it, then it becomes this thing. We're going to do it on next week's call. We're going to walk through it and we're going to get consensus from the team and then go and build it out. That's the idea.
If I'm not able to join next week's call, can I send them in as a support ticket?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. So Bear with me, guys. Galaxy. Chuck, can you explain the RMM integration you're looking for?
Yeah,
with Automate?
basically, I'm not sure if you interface with ConnectWise Automate right now, but Automate does our patching, and I'm actually right now trying to reconcile disparity between your product and One and Automate, where everybody seems to have a different view, and I would like to have your product control whether or not a patch gets applied by Automate, RRMM, ConnectWise Automate.
So that is the feature that we are working on right now, Chuck. So we are essentially going to be pulling back what patches are required. And if you enable it, then we'll basically kind of stage those patches with the Automate so that it can essentially push those down to the specific client.
And are you guys talking
today?
Pardon?
I got a call in the middle of your answer. Forgive me. I declined it, but I missed some of your words. Automate integration exists today?
There is an Automate integration today, but that is more for basically pushing out our agents. The Automate integration that we are going to do is for you to be able to stage patches and basically push it out through Automate and basically be able to reconcile what client, the assets that you have inside of Automate with the assets that you have within our system.
Awesome. When is that on the roadmap for? Q2, 3, 4?
That's basically the third week that I've basically put out there.
Okay, thank you.
Then Chuck also asked Shiva, we're back to our backup integrations. Is Unitrends something we're considering?
Is it something that is being used widely? Because
fair amount. Yeah, it was Kaseya acquired them.
Kaseya Unitrends, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
fair amount. I mean, they're not Veeam, but
Yeah,
fair
not
amount,
Veeam.
right, Chuck?
Yeah, they're immutable, unlike Veeam. So, but they're not like Veeam. Thanks for laughing.
That's good. Let's see. Yeah, but Shiva, they have a fair amount of, Kaseya is obviously pretty big, and now they have Datto. So, I don't know. I think it's certainly worth us considering. They have a pretty big install base.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, Chuck. Chuck, do you have? Would you give us if we get going on that at some point
Yeah.
here? Obviously, there's a lot. Can you give us access to help?
100%. Yeah, we've probably got 50 of them. So yeah.
Okay.
And the same with Automate, if it helps you. I don't mind being a crash test dummy, using our own company instance for your assistance to make it better.
Appreciate that. Ben, yes, the Kibana is coming back. We're bringing Sexy back. We're bringing Kibana back. Let's see. Jerry, we'd like to see reports with all GPO settings in AD environments show.
Yeah, so got that. Vishali, that also can you please forward to Bisha, because I think we have all the data, so it's only constructing the report.
Thanks.
Can you see that one, Vishali, under Jerry at 11:45?
Yes, Andrew, I've noted it down.
Okay, thanks. Is there any? Okay, Shiva, risky logins outside, so geolocating, anomalistic type logins in Azure AD.
Yes, that is basically part of that AD integration that's coming on July 11.
Okay. That continuous.
Yes.
Cloud monitoring. Okay. Is that both O365 and Azure Shiv?
Yes.
Cool. Just curious, would we consider like if it, one thing, like if a new team is created or a new person's added to a team, like any thoughts on, okay, we're or that, like, here's the SharePoint site that got created. Because again, when somebody adds a document, SharePoint's spun up in the background, any of that kind of potential stuff, Shiva, going to be added as well?
No, it's complete auditing information, right? So whatever activities happen in Office 365 and flagging which looks like suspicious activities, both of these.
Okay, got it. GFI, thanks, Dennis. That was the one. GFI Max, yep. Shiv, how does Cyber CNS update third-party apps? Is it through Chocolate?
Yeah, it is chocolatey, and we have our own repository, which basically we curate and basically make sure that updates are placed there for the key applications. So we just don't do everything because we want to maintain control over it in terms of what applications we patch and don't patch. Unless they're tested by us, we don't want to push it out.
Okay. Casey's asking for something like Canny. Shiv, will we consider putting in Canny for voting?
Absolutely. I will basically work on it.
Yeah, it's put perch use. It helped a lot. Awesome. Here with you guys. I didn't realize that, Reed. 35 years they've been around. I remember back in the day when what's his name? He was out of South Carolina. Had a very unique name. He was there before Cassette bought him.
Talking Lincoln?
No. It'll come to me. Okay. How about Ninja One, Shiv? Integration.
We'll add that in the list. It may be not make it for the first round, but second round definitely.
Okay. Is there a report for publicly shared files in M365?
Not right now, but that's why basically what is coming basically as part of the 11th update.
Got it. Is anyone else using patching through Cyber CNS? Seeing a lot of failures initially, group patch at once. And again, patching is still beta, correct, Shiv? I mean, we haven't gone live GA on beta on patching, right?
I'll work with Bill to see what's causing the problems, but it's basically like a lot of customers are using it and they seem to be having success with it. I want to just figure out what exactly is the problem that Bill is facing. I'll get to the root of that.
Okay. Dennis, what are you saying with external scans?
I was just making a comment that
getting parallel on par.
Yeah, it's a lot more than just the reporting. One of the things that prevents us from being able to use Cyber CNS for all of our external scans is the lack of the ability to create custom scan profiles, because we encounter a lot of clients that have unusual configurations, and we have to create specific profiles in order to get the information. So I'm hoping that with the new scanning engine for external, that will be part of the capability.
Yes, Dennis, that's what we're doing, which is you can basically create a lightweight scan, you can create a deep scan, you can basically create your own custom scan. In the custom scan, you can define what type of scan, whether it is basically the stealth scan or is it basically a connect scan. And after that, so in technicality, I'm exposing everything that Nmap is basically going to be allowing you to do, right? Defining which ports you want to scan or which ports you want to exclude. All of those pieces basically we're creating as profiles.
That's great. We don't use all the capabilities of a tool like Qualys, but there are certain kind of basic things like the things you just mentioned that are pretty core to the functionality that we need to have in order to be able to use it for external scans.
Correct. And one of the things that we are essentially doing in this particular thing is doing the discovery of what type of application. So using application fingerprinting and then basically looking at, so for example, you're also getting into things like WordPress or Drupal or any of those CMSs and any of the problems that they have. Plus, if you have IIS, if that is misconfigured. So some of those deep down capabilities, plus basically we are also putting in whatever we can with the OWASP top 10.
That really sounds awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
All right. She just active. Casey, you want to just close us out? We're at the top of the hour with active file. Casey?
Sorry for that, had some background noise. So long story short, we have used ActiveFile for recent file level data analysis to identify PAN, PHI, et cetera, file types and password stores, so forth. This is especially useful during new assessments, initial audits, et cetera. Is there a chance that you'll be adding features for that, or perhaps an integration for a tool like ActiveFile?
No, we basically want to add this PHI detection specifically because lots of folks are asking for it. So in fact, this is something that I wanted to throw through this group, saying that, is that something, if we did add, you feel it would basically add value to the product, or basically do you think it's something that you don't care about at this point of time? That's kind of like the vote of confidence I needed from this team so that we can go and put a team to start building this up.
Sure. Yeah, I can't necessarily answer whether or not it would be hugely beneficial for everyone. I'm probably going to differ from a lot of people's opinions when I say that, usually there's a specific tool built by someone for having a very niche use. And I think you mentioned something like this earlier, that adding additional time to the scan might not be ideal, but something similar to ActiveFile with an integration would be amazing. But there probably should be some option, at least, to scan deeply against, local file stores, OneDrive, SharePoint, et cetera, to identify, whether someone has a list of passwords or whether someone has, a list of social security numbers, for example. That's a massive piece of risk.
Understood. So if we basically added this, instead of basically to look at every file on every file system on the system, but rather looked at only network shares and basically OneDrive, like public documents, and then came back with the data on that as a first step, would that basically be sufficient for a sales demo?
Yeah, I think it'd be at least a step in the right direction. Certainly something that would trigger at least a workaround, or rather a process that needs to take place, like, hey, initiate scan XYZ from another service. But yeah, I mean, having one report that indicates the major risk aspects, that would be ideal.
Perfect.
All right. Shiv, great job. Team MSPs, great job. Really, really appreciate everybody's input, and Shiv, a great job to you and the team for the continued efforts you guys are putting in and making this tool awesome. So with that, Shiva, we'll see everybody next week. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Everybody have a fantastic 4th. If you're in the States, be safe. We look forward to seeing you all next Wednesday. Take care.
Thank you.
You too. Take care, Andrew.
Bye.